Hello everybody, Dr. Alani here. In today's video I want to cover a very important subject called shock loss that normally occurs after your transplant procedure. So in order to understand shock loss, you first have to understand how normal hairs grow and how stress can modify that. So normal hairs go through three phases. One phase is they're actively growing. And after that phase, they're not actively growing, they've stopped growing. And in the third phase, they're actually getting kicked out, like they're shedding. Now this is a one-way cycle. Hairs go from growing to not growing to get kicked out. Growing to not growing to get kicked out. They do not move in reverse. Now, on a normal head, hairs are in different parts of this cycle, such that your hairs never all fall out, or they never all grow. They're all happening randomly. So you don't really notice what we call a shedding phase. You'll just see normal shedding throughout the day. When a hair gets stressed out, something happens such that a lot of the hairs that were in the growing phase will just move into the not growing phase all at once. And then in a couple of months, since they're in that not growing phase, the only thing they can do to start growing again is to go through the kicked out phase. And that's the part of shock loss. So you'll notice that people have a stressful event, and it's not till 1 to 3 months later that the hairs will actually fall out. But the hairs did go through a no growing phase in between that period of time. So when we do your transplant procedure, two things are going to happen. Number one, when we take the hairs out of the back of your head, we're obviously causing them a shock. And then we're putting them back in the head. Almost all those hairs that we transplant, we would expect to go into shock loss. If they were growing, they're entering no growth phase and they're going to get kicked out. And that's why you see most of your hairs falling out between 1 and 3 months after procedure. In terms of that, I mean most of the hairs that we transplant. However, the hairs that were in your head previously, if we transplant hairs into this area, that part of your scalp, that skin, may become inflamed. And that inflammation may cause shock loss to your normal hairs. That means hairs you originally had there will also sync up in the phase of we're going from growing to not growing, and in 1 to 3 months we're going to fall out. So they may fall out with the hairs we transplanted, and you may notice your hair is actually thinner in months 1 through 6 after your transplant because of shock loss of both the hairs we transplant and your original hairs. It's not to worry though, those hairs will all grow back. It just takes time from them to start sprouting and then to grow to the full length. So I hope shock loss makes more sense to you. At this point in time, there's no way to prevent shock loss. The techniques such as micro FUE or discrete FUE, we do have less information when we put the grafts in your scalp, so maybe there is less shock loss, but no one's really proven that yet, so we don't want to make that stance quite yet. But hopefully this all makes sense. If you have any questions, please reach out to us. Thank you very much for watching.